Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Paradigm Shifts podcast with your host, Keisha Kruger. I'm an organization development practitioner and executive coach, working with leaders to create positive changes in the workplace using behavioral science. My personal mission? Share science-based tools and leadership insights from the field that you can use in the workplace and beyond. Considering we spend about 3/4 of our lifetime at work, there is incredible science and organizational psychology that could be used to rethink the way we work, lead, and ultimately live. Join me as I speak with thought leaders and business leaders in practice, unpacking light bulb moments for paradigm shifts. Hey everyone, on this week's episode, we sit down with Byron Rodgers, a service-centered executive protection agent, video blogger, published author, and veteran on a steadfast mission to improve the quality of the world by making good people more dangerous. Byron served in the United States Marine Corps infantry with 2 deployments to Iraq as a squad leader for 4 years. Shortly after, he became an executive protection agent. Over the span of a decade, Byron has conducted private security operations in over 60 countries. The transition from military to civilian life inspired him to author the book, Finding Meaning After the Military. Today, he serves as the Chief Executive Officer at Bravo Research Group, a boutique private security company out of Southern California. He is also the founder of Protector Nation, a training company for first responders, private security professionals, and civilians. He owns and operates his own executive protection school and training organization called the League of Executive Protection Specialists, where he helps private security professionals take their careers to the next level. For more information about Byron and his services, check out the show notes. Hey Byron, how are you?
I'm good. It is an honor to be here once again.
Take 2.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, for everyone listening or who will be listening, this is our second time. Byron has graciously given me up another 30 to 45 minutes of his time so we can record. We lost our first episode. And today we're going to chat about situational awareness and self-awareness and how one may lend itself to the other. Anytime we can improve self-awareness in my book is a win. And you are an expert in situational awareness.
Thank you.
Your background, it's in private security and executive protection. How did you get into that?
People think about protecting themselves, and I don't think they realize that the two things you're talking about, like self-awareness and situational awareness, are really like 80 to 90% of what it is. It has so much less to do with your, weapons and all these hardcore things. So much of it is a mental game. It's like really all about software and perception. But the way I got into it was by the grace of God. I got into the Marine Corps, in the United States Marine Corps, when I was young. And after being in the U.S. Marine Corps infantry, 2 deployments to Iraq, got the t-shirt, caught a few IEDs, lucky to be alive. I got right into private security at age 21, by the grace of God. Like literally was like praying, was told to go to this place, this local bar, started bouncing, and was recruited onto one of the biggest private security details, most highly traveled private security details in the United States. We traveled more than the Secret Service and the president that year. We hit 60 countries in our first year. I did that on repeat for 7 years. So I developed in dog years in this game. A lot of people say they do what I do, but it's like being a musician. Like maybe you do executive protection, but are you really like a professional? Or do you just kind of like, are you a musician that just plays at your local bar on Thursdays? Like, I know we're both musicians, but there's levels. So it's been an honor and a privilege.
So tell me how you act. Like someone just walked up to you and was like, "Hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this, and come join us." Like,
yeah,
that's really how it happened.
Basically, so I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and I was like scared. Like I was like, "What am I gonna do?" I can only really hold a gun for somebody, so I'm either gonna be a cop or I'm gonna be like a mercenary, like a contractor, and start going overseas. And I was just like, "Father, like, what do I do?" And he's like, "Yo, go to this bar, start bouncing. You're going to become a bodyguard and travel the world." So I was like, okay, cool. So I just listened to what I was told. I went to this bar. I started bouncing by the grace of God. I'm checking IDs and I'm busting tables. And the dude's like, have him do it. And I'm like, what's up, guys? And now I didn't need to bust tables. I was just trying to be a good dude, and like go over and above. And I'm like, what's up, guys? What you got? And the dude's like, you got combat experience? I was like, yep. He's like, you're getting out of the Marine Corps, right? And I was like, yep. And then they were like, go get these 2 permits. Give me a call back in 2 weeks, and I'll show you how to make a lot more money doing what you're doing. Boom, I do it. I blink. I'm in the back of a Bentley on Rodeo Drive. In my first job interview, freaked out because in the floor of the Bentley, it's like fur. Like there's like fur, like this much, like thick. And I remember thinking like, oh, someone left their jacket on the floor, and I don't want to put my feet down. And I was like hovering my feet,
Oh no.
and then the rest is history. We hit, 60 plus countries that first year. And I just grew up. This is the only job I've had since combat. I'm 36 now. So, yeah, grace of God and relationships.
Relationships and experience. And in your career, I'm sure
Yeah.
situational awareness has become a major part of not only your job and career, but like your lifestyle. What does it mean to be situationally aware?
It's very interesting. So, as an executive protection agent, as a private security specialist, um, we kind of leverage situational awareness the same way I teach civilians to do it, because we are civilians protecting civilians. So kind of that same mindset, a lot of those techniques and tactics just are directly transferable. Even at my courses, I'm like, if civilians want to come train with us, like, come on over. We're not the CIA, but we'll teach you how to live a safer pattern of life. And that's really what this game is about, living a safer pattern of life. Like, how can you make it so your life is safer so you just don't even realize the things that you've avoided? And you don't have to use your kung fu, Judy chop, karate chop, or anything else crazy that you might have on you, because you just do things in a safe way. So, um, really what we do has so much to do with a little bit of planning, a little bit of orientation, the way you move when you walk into a room. And I really kind of break it down into like a few major bites, because you'll hear, if you like start watching YouTube videos, like, oh, and have more situational awareness, you'll hear people touting like, this person needed more situational awareness. But it's like, what does that mean to like a civilian or someone, who's lived a normal person's life? Like, they all, first of all, they all think they're situationally aware. Like, so that's the first thing. Like, with all my sisters, I got 5 sisters, and all the kind of civilians I've dealt with, they are most of the time they're pretty convinced. It takes a person with pretty good internal awareness to be like, I'm not very situationally aware. Most people think they're amazing and are like, I see everything. And that's their first huge and major blind spot, is realizing how vulnerable you are from the
Mm,
beginning. Even me, like, I know how vulnerable I am, so I put systems in place. I know that I'm going to want to send a text message when I'm sitting in the car. So I literally have a rule. I get in the car, I turn it on, I put it in drive, or I put it in reverse. So if someone walks up to me, boom, I can just hit the gas. Now, if I get distracted after that, cool. But I'm going straight to a place that's going to give me a tactical advantage, which is keys in ignition, vehicle in gear. Okay, so when that, transient appears, which for some reason they know how to appear, like just appears next to my window and is like, hey, can I get like $10, whatever? You gotta get 10 cents like the last time, scares the crap out of you. Even with the best situational awareness, you already have a strategy in place that's going to protect you. But like, to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how I approach situational awareness in a way that's going to be much more relevant to a normal person, it's, first and foremost, context. Where are you going? What are you doing? What threat or risk is associated with this action? You go into a gas station after it's dark outside. Gas station's a watering hole. This is where
oops.
if you watch my tactical
Like
protection reviews,
that was me yesterday. So.
yeah, I mean,
Oh.
right? And like, how do you make it safer? You try to
Yeah.
go during the day. You try to go to a
Mhm.
highly populated, nice gas station during the day, right?
You try not to let your gas tank hit 0 miles in before the end of the day.
Planning. We're still in the planning phase, right? So
Planning.
forethought. You have your gas stations that you usually go
Yeah.
to. You know your path of travel. You know that your highest risk actions, or your most vulnerable, is going to be in the seams when you're in transitional spaces. Look at the transitional spaces in your life while you're going from your front door to your vehicle, from your house to your place of business, from the door of your car to the building you work in. All these are transitional spaces. These are macro, like the small ones, and these are micro, the small ones I described, and also macro. If you're going to see friends and family during the holiday season, that whole trip, you're kind of in this weird transitional space where your ability to recognize behaviors outside of the norm, outside of the baseline, is a bit shunted. It's a little blurry. You don't know what's normal, what's not. So a little bit of planning, understanding the context of where you're going, what you're doing. You go into a house party, okay, well, maybe you should be paying a little bit closer attention because maybe you know everybody, but maybe there's that one or two persons, that one or two dudes that are there that will be the ones that cause the problem. You're going to a bar, a live event, a school. These places have been active shooter, environments over the course of this last year. So maybe you should pay a little. You going to Walmart? I think Walmart's going to be where the next zombie movie starts, So, I mean, sometimes.
Well, that just took a turn.
We went to a hard left. But anyways, so.
That was a hard left.
So for the first principle, context. What are you doing? What is an appropriate risk for you to associate with that action? The next one is tactical positioning. Okay, so now you're at a gas station late at night because you had to, or you're just at a gas station anyways. And if you see my tactical protection reviews, it's over 100 videos, where I talk about how to survive these violent encounters and show you the violent encounters, right? And it's all free. You're going to see
putting it in the show notes. I'm going to put it in the show notes.
That's what's up. You'll see a lot of them are at gas stations, right? So you're at this gas station now. How do you position yourself in that environment to give you visual mastery so that if someone is going to do something, there are things in between you and them. You can see them as early as possible, giving you the ability to react as quickly as possible. You can have some type of tactical advantage on them if they decide to start to move and orient towards you. So I'm at a gas station. How do I stand? Where do I position myself? When I'm at a gas station, I'm bouncing. If I have to face my vehicle, I am bouncing that image off my vehicle so I can see what's behind me while I put the tank in. But I also have my head on a swivel. So while I'm charging or fueling my vehicle, I'm looking in the glass behind me and I'm paying attention to what's behind me. I am not have my head.
And you're not have your headphones in. You're not looking at a phone. You're keeping your ears and eyes open, right? Like those 100%. Areas. Okay.
Yeah, 100%, because it's a watering hole. That's where all the predators go to hunt. And then a lot of times I'll turn around, I'll put my back to my car, and I will kind of use the backside of my hand to lock the gas pump on, and then I'll go and sit in my car, lock the door, and do what I got to do until it's done. But I'm paying attention to how I'm oriented in my world, right? You're at a restaurant. Do you know where the entrances and exits are? Are you seated in a place where you will actually see someone approaching your table, so where you'll see trouble before it gets to you?
Hey,
and that's going to give you the time.
That's cool. I do that already. My dad growing up taught me that being in the military, he could not ever sit with his back facing the door. He always had to have visual, have his eyes. Yeah. Visual mastery on the doors, the exits. I remember when we were little, he'd always ask us like, all right, where are the exits? Show me where the exits are. And we would like go into a place and that would be a game we'd play and we'd like spot them. So kudos to my dad. That's awesome. Getting there.
Sounds like an awesome dude, man. And it's true. It's taking responsibility for your safety. It's taking responsibility for the environment. Silly villains will make fun of you. They'll be like, oh, like you're like always ready. But like the reality is when something happens and you see it coming from a ways away and you already have a plan and you save everyone's life or minimize casualties or deal with the threat before it can do anything else, everyone's going to be like, wow, how did you do that? And it's like, well, I came in here with a plan and I executed on it by the grace of God, right? So tactical positioning is huge. You're in an elevator. Like, where do you stand? If you don't want anyone in your quarter panels, like put your back up against the wall. Pick up your cell phone and like hold it and get ready to put it through the credit card of someone's face if you need to, like these little things you can do to get yourself prepared. But
thanks for that representation.
Right? This is where all the soft bones are, right? This is where it's easy to make entry if you need to. But It's these little things. Or if the first two steps give you the data you need, maybe you don't get on the elevator with a sketchy person who, it's the wrong time and place. You're getting ready to get on an elevator, and they're standing behind you or in your corner panel, or they're trying to take dominant position around you and walk onto an elevator with you. Maybe you just take a hard left and you're like, I'm going back into Starbucks until the next elevator comes without a creepy dude, you know. So there's the next one is tactical positioning. The third one is rolling risk assessment. And this is where you're looking around at people around you and you're like, what's the social baseline of this environment? We're at a gas station. Is everyone pumping gas? Is everyone walking into the store and walking out? Is there a dude with a hoodie in the corner watching all of us? We're at an airport, curbside. We just landed. Is everyone waiting for their ride, or is there some dude back here behind everyone up against the wall just watching to see what everyone does and where everyone goes? You know, this is understanding the social dynamics of a place. What do people's waistlines look like? What kind of nervous behavior are you seeing exuded from people? And what kind of information can you patch together, in the environment you're in? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate? And there's a book by Gavin DeBecker called The Gift of Fear that talks about this instinct that people have, women have, especially where, I just had a feeling. I had a feeling something wasn't right, but I ignored it, and you give someone an alibi when they don't deserve it. Well, I just didn't want to be racist, or I didn't want to be judgmental, or I didn't want to. No. Your safety needs to be prioritized over any social whatever. You can excuse your behavior later. I didn't want to get in the elevator with this dude because he's physically stronger than me, and I didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I
And
just didn't feel comfortable.
most of the, I would say most of the time you don't even owe anyone an explanation. If you decide to go with
100%.
your gut and your intuition, right? Like that is an absolute priority.
Yep.
And like step number 3, rolling risk assessment requires a lot of intuitive ability, right? You have to be able to listen to yourself.
Trust and listen to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
100%. And you know that you're not, racist or misogynist or whatever the heck it is that they want to call you. You know that you're just prioritizing your safety. That's all you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. And
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be more of a priority to people, I believe, because when you hunt people, and as a professional protector, I study hunting people because that my enemy is doing that. You see it in people all the time. They make themselves vulnerable because they give an alibi. In that book, The Gift of Fear, you'll see a lot of that. Another great book by Tim Larkin, When Violence is the Answer. Amazing book, but it talks a lot about this, a lot of these principles as well. And then finally, if you are paying attention to context, if you're running, if you're maintaining tactical positioning in your environment, if you're running your rolling risk assessment, finally you want to have a plan. So, hey, if I am pumping gas and someone does approach me while I'm out here, what am I going to even do? What is going to be my, and your plan isn't going to be perfect, and it's not going to be something you're going to for sure execute on because situation dictates tactics, but you will be ahead if you gave it forethought. The cognitive dissonance that happens to people that are like, what? What's happening? Why is this happening? This isn't happening. I can't believe this is happening. Between those people and then someone like me who was like, oh, I had a plan for this. And you're like, you've executed like 4 steps before everyone's like, they're still like trying to comprehend what's happened,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
is, those steps will help you live a safer pattern of life. And you won't even get to the right of bang. If there's a timeline, left of bang is where all this planning and all this intelligence and all this software goes. You'll stay over here. Bang is the actual event. You'll never get to this right of bang area, possibly your entire life, if you're doing these things over here, left of bang, intelligently. And that's another amazing book, Left of Bang, that your readers should check out.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing those resources. So those 4 steps, it seems to me like those kind of have to happen in the moment, right? Because you need to be in the environment, in the situation for some of those things to happen, like a rolling risk assessment potentially. Maybe you can plan in advance like certain areas you know you're going to, but how do you know, like tactical position you can probably plan in advance as well, but how do you know if someone comes on site that you weren't preparing for? Do you just plan in advance for that as well?
So, like in your civilian life, the only one that really happens ahead of time is the context one.
Mm,
Context is like, okay, cool. I'm going, all right, I'm about to leave my office and walk to my car. Let me, if I have something I want to have in my hand to defend myself, or if I have a certain path I take, or a friend that I tap and we walk to our cars together, let me make the provisions to make this a a safe movement. Um,
mhm,
but then when you're in the positioning, when you're in the environment, then you start focusing on, oh, where's the best place for me to stand? All right, I've got a group of weird dudes here and I got some vehicles over here. I'm just going to go around the group of weird dudes through the vehicles. Like this
mhm.
tactical positioning thing is a real time. It's happening in real time.
Yeah, it's
The
real
rolling
time.
risk assessment is happening in real
Hmm.
time. And the planning is happening in real time. And it sounds like a lot. And at first it is a lot. But it's like driving your car. You got in your car and you're like, okay, I'm driving and I got to look over my shoulder and I got to look in these mirrors and I'm going so fast. And then like after a while, it becomes second nature and you're like brushing your teeth and like sending text messages and like driving at the
Hmm.
same time you're not supposed to be. It just becomes a way of life. And that's what ends up happening.
So to build this skill, would you say practice just and every opportunity that you get, just put these into practice, and that will become like you'll build that muscle.
Yeah, it's going to be reps. It's going to be okay. Sweet. I'm going to try to implement this new software into my mind,
Mm,
and we all know how it's going to happen. You're just going to have to get the reps. Okay, cool. Today I'm leaving my office. Context. What am I doing? I'm about to go from one safe place to the next, my office to my car, and then it's once I get out. So I should be paying attention. Like I shouldn't be face in phone for that walk, right? And then it's going to be tactical positioning. What's the best path for me to take, or where should I sit? You just start to kind of think this way, and then it's like rolling risk assessment. You look at this parking lot before I walk through it, and then it's like, sweet. Well, if anything happens, I'm still close enough to run back to the office door, or I'm gonna have to boogie it to my car, or there's a
mm,
Starbucks with a door open right down there, like right, literally right there for this walk. That's probably where I would bug out to if someone ever attacked me in this parking lot ever. And like that plan would stay there, kind of, and that's kind of
mhm.
you already like put a plan in that chunk of your life, that can help you with the drop of a hat, So it's like safe proofing your life in many different ways just by forethought and
Yeah.
processes.
I know many like companies and businesses, they have these like plans in place in terms of like, here's the exit, but I don't know how well we do it um, visiting or revisiting the plans. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
in this depth, because I think in an organization when you have employees coming in and out, we may forget that, to be, put to have that tactical positioning into place. To remember that it's not just fire that is a danger. It could be other people walking in with the passcode to the door, right? Like there's
Yeah.
other things that are besides cybersecurity that we're focused on. We also should be vigilant about strangers or people that, exhibit things outside of those social behaviors.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the workspace, the office is completely, I mean, these things have to happen in real time, like they try to kind of check the boxes in many ways and come up with like a one size fits all, where here's our active
Mm-hmm.
threat plan for humans, like active human plan or whatever, or active shooter plan or whatever it is. But the reality is it's going to be very fluid. And so if you're used to thinking this way, it's going to be easier for you. They talk about law enforcement will give you a brief on run, hide, fight. And it's like, okay, cool. But your selection process is what's going to make that strategy effective. Do you know when to run? Do you know where to run? Do you know where to hide? Do you know when to hide? And you know when or where to fight and what to fight with? Like what in your environment is going to empower you to do any of these things? And so that planning phase, that forethought phase, that courage sometimes, because if you're not competent or if you're insecure about these things, sometimes, emotional intelligence is what gives us the ability to act and execute. Just period. It's like what makes the difference in so many areas of life. And so being able to say, okay, you know what, this is something I should devote some sense of awareness to. What would I do? If I had to hide in this office or run or fight, like what's even around me? And these are conversations you want to have before the emergency. I had a young Marine I was in charge of in combat, and it was my second deployment, so I'd already been blown up and all my stuff. And I remember he leaned back to me one day and he was like, Corporal, you know, he goes, I know what I'm going to do if we get blown up. And I'm like, hey, stop. Listen, we are in an AO, an area of operation, that has 80% victim-initiated IEDs, improvised explosive devices, victim-initiated bombs, 80% of them everywhere. I was like, we are the lead vehicle. All right, buddy. We are going to get blown up. First fact. And I got blown up 5 times. The only question is when and what you're going to do. So have a plan. And he kept thinking about it. We got blown up. He came running back to me. Fortunately, we both lived. And he was like, Corporal, I did exactly what my plan was. I did exactly. Because he was really worried about being a coward. Because he wasn't like a hard dude. He was a really sweet young boy, like young man, barely man, like young boy. And I remember just coaching him, being like, you got to have your plan of what you're going to do when this happens. So you just go into action. And sure enough, then he was so proud. And it was beautiful to see how proud he was, and we let our concussions like fade away together. We shared those moments.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so glad that both of you are here. He's alive and well,
He's
correct?
good. He's good.
Okay,
He's
good.
all right.
Good. Wow. And thank you both for your service. Now, I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we don't do a lot of standing self-defense, but when we do, it's constantly repeated to us that in any time that we're doing, training, that we need to do live rolling sparring, right? Because that allows you to get a feel for what your fight, flight, or freeze response might be in a situation where you may not know that, right? Like if you're at a bar and someone grabs you, you don't know how you'll react until it happens. But if you're training for that situation, if you're planning, if you're putting your body through stressful environments and stressful situations, and you're getting a feel for how you might react, and you're allowing yourself to condition it a certain way that'll allow you to react, to instead of react, respond. And that's what we want, right? We want a controlled response.
More awareness, more consciousness, deliberation in the response. No, it's what you're saying is 100% correct. And that's the sneaky thing. That's what a lot of guys are worried about when it comes to combat. And that's why Marine Corps training is so stressful, because we're trying to inoculate people to stress. And that's one of the reasons why jiu-jitsu is so good, is because you can simulate murder at like 80% and you can do it repeatedly. And so it's like, man, what high quality reps, because it's like learning to fly a jet. You learn to fly at that speed. You can actually start to kind of deal with that speed and bring more awareness and consciousness and less serotonin to that event. Right. But, or whatever the stress response hormone is. But, and that's when we train guys out at the school, we send guys through training to where it's like, this will be the hardest day of your entire executive protection career. Part of your takeaway will be how to deal with this much stress. We had a guy get into a car accident with a client a few days ago, just situational accident. They didn't do anything wrong. And he hit us back and wrote us a long letter about how the training, just being able to deal with stress, was the tool that helped him navigate that situation as safely as possible. So that's part of becoming a protector, is
building that resilience. Investing in yourself, building resilience, desensitizing yourself. I said in the beginning that self-awareness and situational awareness, it seems like they lend itself to each other. And what I realize as we're talking is that you have to be self-aware to be able to grow your situational awareness, right?
100%.
And I think vice versa, like as you become more situationally aware, you grow your self-awareness. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like if situational awareness is all about paying attention to what's going on around you, right? Like it's externally focused. How would you say that this skill, this tactical skill that you've had to build has helped you with self-awareness, becoming like more internally aware, if it has at all?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I'd say because the information that I'm getting from the external sparks a conversation internally. And so I'm constantly kind of talking with myself. And
Mm,
there's a constant dialogue that's going on. Like, oh, literally like weird dude with the hoodie. Like, what's weird dude with the hoodie doing right now? And I'm constantly enemy orientation, my orientation. I'm constantly orienting off of my environment, maintaining dominant positioning, making
mm,
sure that I'm not exposing myself to vulnerabilities. No one's getting in my corner panels back here. Um, I'm constantly paying attention to my impact in the environment, and I think that's really, really helped. And my capabilities. It's like, well, from this distance, I don't know if I can get to him in time. So maybe I should close distance. I'm constantly like, and so when I train, I'm like, okay, I know what I can do. And then I'm in the world and I'm like, okay, I know what I can do. And in this situation, I should be closer or farther away from that guy. Um, do I have the strength to move these people? Do I have the strength to
mm.
deal with these barriers? So I'm constantly kind of assessing myself as it pertains to protection in my environment and having this conversation about what my awareness is telling me, relative to my
Mm.
capabilities, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that those like frequent check-ins with yourself, that
Yeah.
dialogue that you're having, I mean, it will hopefully lead to just more trust in yourself, right? More trust
Hmm.
in the that intuition that might come up that you need for the rolling risk assessment in order to
Yeah.
make, more accurate judgments. And like what
Hmm.
happens if, you learn like you have a situation with yourself where that check-in doesn't go so well, right? Like how do you build grace and compassion for yourself in situations where you weren't perfect or you didn't have it right or you weren't accurate, right? All of
Yeah.
that matters too, not just the positive wins, but the times where you mess up. Like are you
Hmm.
giving yourself, forgiving yourself for mistakes?
Yeah. And that's kind of where the awareness, I think, also helps, is because you'll find yourself sometimes being like, like you'll be doing something. Like for me, when I'm walking with a client, it's ultra pronounced. It's like, hey, bro, you
Mm,
should not have let this guy get in this position on you and your client. And we're walking by, and I'm like, you messed up there. It went good, but you messed up there. Like, make sure it doesn't happen again. Or like when I'm doing things, you'll make mistakes. You won't be perfect,
mhm,
but to understand that your mistakes they're not a destination. There's something that's passing you by. And the cool thing about this is, or like sometimes you'll have a dinner where like someone who's not very aware will beat you to the table and they'll like sit down facing the door. They have no idea. They have no idea. And you have a choice. Like, do you ask them to switch spots and be the weird
mhm.
dude, the weird I gotta face the door dude? Or do you just ride it out? And then the whole time you're sitting there, you're just like, I hate this,
Or
Or
you're
do I
so
like,
uncomfortable, yeah, and
yeah,
then you're
do I
like,
like move my
why didn't I
chair?
say anything?
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of way to live
Mhm.
life, but it's a safer way to live life. And to answer your question more succinctly, I try to iron out it's not so much about um, being like perfect or anything, but it's so much more about being very accurate about my capabilities, right? And my
Mm,
strengths and my weaknesses. I want to know myself. And that's what the training does. You know what you can do. You have the most realistic lens on what it would mean to grapple with a dude right now than any other
mhm,
female listener here that has not actually grappled with a dude this week. So you kind
mhm.
of understand, like, yeah, I do
Yeah,
jujitsu, but like this is about how deep I want the water to get. Like, and if I
yeah.
have to, like, this is what I can maybe get away with, like, and that's what training does. It makes you accurate, helps you understand reality, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, so you're
And
not disillusioned about your abilities. You're not going into a fight with no training and putting yourself at an unnecessary risk when you could have just ran away, right? Or done
yeah,
something else, maybe or hid, or you don't
yeah,
need to do that. Yeah.
like the classic civilian, like, oh, I'm so angry, like the dude at the bar that's like, I when I get angry, it's like, What does your anger have to do with this? There's efficient people here and there's inefficient people here.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't want to be under any illusions when it comes to right of bang competencies. And the training cleanses you, makes you accurate, because inaccurate confidence is arrogance, and the world will act upon you to bring you back to accuracy. And you want to do the work yourself. It's better.
It'll come better from yourself than from an external source, I'm sure.
Yeah,
okay, so this has been such an interesting and fascinating conversation, but time has already flown by. I'm going to wrap it up with one final question for you.
Yes.
And the final question is, what's the most recent paradigm shift that you've experienced, whether it's related to this work or just anything else?
This is good. But before I answer that real quick, when we're talking about self-awareness, the most powerful thing is the training you put on yourself and physically exerting yourself, like training that pushes you physically will teach you so much more about yourself than any other training or book knowledge or collegey, clean, nice, not sweaty stuff, because you get to see the inside of your soul. That's the only way to get there, is through all that sweat and blood and hard work. So, it takes courage to even start to try that, right? It's so respectable. So that's the one thing.
Thank you.
100%. Paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I think I may have mentioned this last time, and I kind of have had one that might be two, but here's what I got, right? I've always known that it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. That's always been something that, of course, me being, a Christian, that's like always been like, oh yeah, like it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Sounds super dope. And I like to get stuff, but as I've grown and as I've felt the payoff of helping people and having people come back to me that graduate from my school and they're like, I'm able to feed my family because of what you taught me. I'm able to keep my kids safe because of the stuff you're teaching me. I'm able to, like, you changed my life. Like having this vocation may have saved my life because I'm a veteran and I wasn't able to find meaning. Like these types of things, having a live event with hundreds of people being like touched and us having an experience together. These things are far and away the most amazing and the most valuable things I've ever learned. So this whole, like, I've never been the best. I've never been the biggest, the baddest. I still kind of don't quite have my six pack yet. Like I never just like, I'm only 5'10". Like I'm kind of like a little above mediocre, but kind of pretty mediocre, right? But I've learned that your gift will make room for you. And if you can give something of value, the world will reciprocate that. And the world will take care of you in direct proportion of your contribution, which has been super dope. But the second level to that is, if you really, really want to make a huge impact, like the one metric in life that really matters the most is the impact you're able to have on others. And if you want to dial that up, like think about that. That's as strong and powerful and smart and dynamic as you can become to make that offering. That one thing, that one metric says so much about who and what you are. And that impact is such a huge, amazing thing. But if you want to really, really amplify it, it's going to be all about your ability to drive results through others and your ability to lead them and empower them and turn them into generals and juggernauts and also decision makers and all these different things, driving those results through other people, relationships, servant leadership. This is the cheat code, is amplifying that one metric that I was talking about that I think is what life's all about, which is giving rather than receiving. So that's where my head's at right now. That's why I gotta get smarter and stronger and faster.
It's so incredible. Thank you for sharing that message and your gifts, because you made room for us to see your gifts twice, even though no one saw the first one. But I did, so I got it twice. I really appreciate it. But no, I really do appreciate you sharing your gifts with those who are listening, because I strongly believe that someone is going to benefit from these tactical steps, from knowing this information, from this knowledge of how to be more self-aware and more situationally aware, which will both positively benefit themselves, but also others around them. So thank you for spreading that.
Hey, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's always an honor every time our paths cross, 100%. And it was cool working with you on that Angstead project, and I hope we do it again.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I hope so.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to leave a review, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening. If you know a business leader in practice or friend who you think would be interested in this episode, please consider sharing it with them. I am so grateful for your support. For more updates, you can follow us at Paradigm Shifts Podcast on Instagram. See you on the next episode.